Hello everyone. Today we will explore the modern age in British literature, the rise of modernism, and two artistic movements called Impressionism and Post Impressionism. By the end of this video lecture, you'll come to know the key nuances of modern age and its major literary development. What is the modern age? The modern age in British literature begins after the Victorian age around 1901 during the reign of Edward VII and goes on until 1945. This was a period of radical transformation. Traditional Victorian forms could no longer express modern reality regarding the modern age. Having said this, let me move on to the historical influences which shape the modern age. World War One and Two shattered faith in old moral, religious, and political systems. Industrialization and urbanization change the way of life and leads to alienation and fragmentation. Moreover, scientific developments such as Charles Darwin's Origin of Species and Einstein's theory of relativity challenged the idea of fixed absolute truths. And Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis revealed the complexity of the subconscious mind. So these changes led to a major transformation and mark the beginning of literary movement called modernism. Modernism is a literary movement. Before before that, Victorian literature in the period of Victorian age aimed to provide a clear, stable reflection of the external world. The core tenets of Victorian period is it is the polished mirror of realism. It attaches importance to moral certainty, that is, clear distinction between right and wrong. And the writers of Victorian period they clinged on to linear plots, that is, their stories starts with a clear beginning, middle, and it ends with a proper end. And the external regarding the external focus, it emphasizes on society, events, and observable reality. So the goal of that period is to show the out and out, the outside world, society, events, and everyday life in a detailed, objective way. And then comes the rise of modernism. It is the period it is the period of literature of the inner world. Modernism is a literary movement that rejected Victorian realism and traditional narrative structures. It aims instead to represent the inner reality of human consciousness through experimental forms. Realism shows the outside world. It focuses on the outside world, society, events, everyday life in a relatively stable, continuous way. It was seen by modernists as detailed but superficial. Modernism shows the inside world, thoughts, impressions, memories, and the subconscious mind are given much more importance. It sought a deeper psychological reality. Many modernists felt that realism, although detailed, was very superficial because it described only the visible surface. The modernists wanted to explore the subconscious mind, the flow of thoughts, subjective and shifting viewpoints of characters. Though so they moved from realism and they clinged on to modernism. What are the features of modernism? First of all, modernist writers often use stream of consciousness technique which depicts the direct flow of a character thoughts. Second, the narratives are fragmented one. That is, the story does not follow a linear plot. The next one is multiple viewpoints. The modernist works include multiple viewpoints showing the same event from different perspectives. And moreover, they rely heavily on symbolism and rich imagery to convey deeper meaning. So the time is often non linear in modernism. Events may jump back and forth. Modernist texts usually have ambiguity and open endings, leaving readers to interpret meaning. Modernists focus on the themes like alienation, disillusionment, loss, and uncertainty. So, as we know, the major modernist writers are James Joyce, Virginia Woolf, T.S. Eliot, and D.H. Lawrence. Impressionism. What is Impressionism? Impressionism is an artistic movement in the arena of painting. It arises in France in the late 19th century with painters like Monet, Degas, Renoir, Pizarro, and Sisley. Regarding the Impressionistic techniques, the Impressionist painters they aim to capture fleeting moments, that is, the quick passing moments. They prefer for everyday modern scenes instead of historical or mythological subjects. That is, instead of painting kings, gods, they prefer to paint ordinary people. They use pure, bright colors, and moreover, they prefer outdoor painting, that is, in plain air. They prefer to paint in plain air means outdoor painting. They prefer to use cropped compositions influenced by photography and Japanese prints. It gives fresh, modern feel, and they use loose brushstrokes and avoid precise outlines. They emphasize surface effects rather than detailed three dimensional realism. Their aim is not photographic accuracy but the impression of a passing moment, impression of a fleeting moment. Regarding the impact of Impressionism on literature, it made the writers to focus on sensations and moods rather than complete solid description. It gives selective images instead of fully developed scenes. The writers who cling on to impressionism techniques fail to capture the subjective experience of a moment. They shift quickly between perception and angles and prefer to show how life is felt and not just how it looks. Writers such as Stephen Crane and Henry James use impressionistic techniques in their narrative styles. Their stories feel immediate, personal, and full of shifting impressions. Let me move on to post Impressionism. Post Impressionism was developed in the 1880s as a reaction to Impressionism. The painters such as Cezanne, Gauguin, Van Gogh, they followed post-impressionism techniques in their painting. The core idea of impressionism is it captures the moment, but post-impressionism seeks the meaning of the moment. It tried to seek the meaning of the moment. Regarding the post-impressionist techniques, it moves beyond simple light effects. It emphasizes structure, form, geometry, symbolism, and deeper emotional truth. It preferred to use color itself to carry emotion and meaning. It often worked in studios rather than outdoors. It moved toward abstraction and strong individual styles. If Impressionism captures the moment, as we have already noted, Post Impressionism seeks the meaning of the moment. Regarding the impact of Post Impressionism on literature, it encourages stronger use of symbolism and deeper psychological and emotional exploration. And moreover, it attaches importance to fragmented and experimental narrative forms than that of usual traditional narrative forms. It also focuses on personal vision and emotional truth rather than realism. These ideas strongly influenced emerging modernist techniques in fiction and poetry. So, once again, I'll stress on this point. Impressionism, it is the passing moment, and post Impressionism, it stresses on the meaning of the moment. Having said this, let me move on to how art movements shaped modernist literature. Impressionist influence on literature, emphasis on momentary perception and passing sensations with rich sensory detail and subjective viewpoints rather than neutral objectivity. It is a move away from heavy, exhaustive realist description. Post Impressionism influence on literature in the following ways. It pushed towards symbolism and emotional depth, and it encourages the formal experimentation and fragmentation. It influences to use of color like imagery, rhythm, and pattern as psychological tools. It is a movement toward abstraction in structure, not just in content. So, together, the two artistic movements shaped modernism with new set of literary tools such as the direct unfiltered flow of characters' thoughts, rejecting linear plots in favor of disjointed collage-like forms, and relying on images to convey meaning rather than straightforward description, moving fluidly between past, present, and future, mimicking memory, and moreover, showing events from several subjective perspectives, capturing the core emotional state of modern individual. So, modernist literature draws from both movements. Stream of consciousness resembles impressionistic shifts in sensation and focus. Fragmented symbolic structures reflect the post impressionist search for inner meaning and personal vision. Writers such as James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, and Virginia Woolf uses images and symbols to carry deep psychological and emotional truth. To conclude, the modern age is a period of profound change shaped by world wars and scientific discoveries. Modernism emerges as a powerful response to this crisis, turning away from Victorian realism and choosing to represent not only the outer world but the complex inner life of consciousness. Impressionism and post Impressionism, though they began in painting, gave literature a new vocabulary of sensations, impressions, symbols, and structures. Modernist writers use these ideas to express the fragmented, uncertain experience of modern life. Thank you.